Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside Talk Show. I'm Carla Elizondo. Thank you for joining me for our continued reading of Awakened Imagination by Neville Goddard. We're on chapter 6. It is within. Rivers, mountains, cities, villages are all human, and when you enter into their bosom, you walk in heaven and earths as in your own bosom. You bear your heaven and earth and all that you behold. Although it appears without, it is within. In your imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. That's from William Blake. The inner world was as real to Blake as the outer land of waking life. So the inner world was as real to Blake as the outer land of waking life. He looked upon his dreams and visions as the realities of the forms of nature. Blake reduced everything to the bedrock of his own consciousness. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Hello. The real man, the imaginative man, so the part in us, our real higher selves, our imaginative self, the real I am, the God in us, the real man, the imaginative man, has invested the outer world with all of its properties, has invested the outer world with all of its properties. The apparent reality of the outer world, which is so hard to dissolve, it is only proof of the absolute reality of the inner world of his own imagination. We've said this many times. If you want to get some recaps of the previous chapters and the previous books, really, Neville just hits this point home hard, time after time. The outside world, the 3D world we can see with our physical eyes, is not reality. It's simply proof and the residue of what is in here, the real world, the world behind our eye, our imagination. Our thoughts, the inner world creates the outer world, not the other way around. No man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me draw him, and I and my Father are one. Oh, this was a big concept when we talked about, no man can come to me except the Father. No man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me. Okay, so that is misconstrued in my understanding of it today. As you know, I change every day. But a lot of people get that mixed up with you have to be a certain religion or you have to believe in Jesus Christ to be saved or get to God, which he's saying the Father lives within our highest self. You can't get to God except through him. That's in your mind. It just so happens that Jesus is one example of the way, the truth, the light, the life, whatever. That's our doorway in. The man that walked on the earth 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ, was not the physical door that we get in. It was his idea, the Christ consciousness that he represented in physical form. That's the way I conceive it. I hope that makes sense. Makes sense to me. The world which is described from observation is a manifestation of the mental activity of the observer. So the world which is described from observation is a manifestation of the mental activity of the observer. Wow. When man discovers that his world is his own mental activity made visible, that no man can come unto him except the let me read that again. When man discovers that his world is his own mental activity made visible, that no man can come unto him except he draws him, and that there is no one to change but himself, his own imagination, his own imaginative self, his first impulse is to reshape the world in the image of his ideal. Wow. Okay. So when we discover that our world is our own mental activity made visible, that nobody can come unto ourselves or God except that self that brings us there inside, and that there is no one to change but ourselves, our own imaginative self, Our first impulse is to reshape the world in the image of our ideal. But our ideal is not so easily incarnated. Tell me about it. In that moment, when we cease to conform to external discipline, we must impose upon ourselves a far more rigorous discipline, the self-discipline upon which the realization of our ideal depends. Imagination is not entirely untrammeled and free to move at will without any rules to constrain it. So imagination is not entirely untrammeled and free to move at will without any rules to constrain it. In fact, the contrary is true. Imagination travels according to habit. Imagination has choice. So imagination travels according to habit. Imagination has choice, but it chooses according to habit. Wow, that's a mind puzzle. Okay. So imagination travels according to habit. Imagination has choice, but it chooses according to habit. Awake or asleep, man's imagination is constrained to follow certain definite patterns. It is this, what word is this, Neville? Benambing? When was the last time you heard the word Benambing? Benambing? Let's look that up. Benambing. Am I saying it right? Benambing. Benambing. Okay. Benambing. Oh my God. Carla, how embarrassing. I think it's benumbing. Carla. You know, I really pronounce words so like, what was the word? Remember impotence? I was saying impotence. Carla, you can't break up words like that. Benumbing. To numb. Benumbing. Girl. Okay. Again. Okay. So, okay. Awake or asleep, man's imagination is constrained to follow certain definite patterns. It is this benumbing influence of habit that man must change. That's hilarious. Okay. Ooh, so awake or asleep, man's imagination is constrained to follow certain definite patterns. It is this benumbing influence of habit that we must change. If we don't, our dreams will fade under the paralysis of custom. Yes, we're a slave to habit. We are a slave to habit. We are a slave to habit. There's a really good quote about desires and dreams. We've talked a lot about you got to have a log on the fire. You got to know where you're going. On the ship of life, have a destination in mind. That's why goals are so important, big or small. But who is the guy who, Robert, it was a quote. It's in the absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until ultimately we become enslaved by it. Robert Heinlein said that. I'll say it again. Okay, so in the absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until ultimately we become enslaved by it. We have to wake up. We can't be numbed. The benumbing influence of habit, of routine, those well-worn paths. They talk a lot about that in like neuroscience of the pathways of the brain, and they're so well tread that they just go there. Think of it as like water going down. You know, if you dig a hole down a hill, when you pour water, the water is just going to go right into the grooves. So what grooves through our thoughts? We carve. Remember, our thoughts are like water. They carve the canyons of our mind. They shape our experience. So what words are you carving? What ways are you going through habit? Just look at your results. Are they leading you to the good, to the happy, and to the peaceful? Or are they, no matter what you do through habit, you just keep getting led to anxiety, depression, and stress? We can recarve it. It takes time and repetition, but we can do it. Okay. So it says, awake or asleep, man's imagination is constrained to follow certain definite patterns. And we do that through repetition or programming, through just what we learn. It is this benumbing influence of habit that man must change. If he does not, his dreams will fade under the paralysis of custom. Imagination, which is Christ in man, is not subject to the necessity to produce only that which is perfect and good. It exercises its absolute freedom from necessity by endowing the outer physical self with free will to choose to follow good or evil, order or disorder. So, imagination, which is that Christ consciousness in us, which is Christ in man, is not subject to the necessity to produce only that which is perfect and good. Is not subject to the necessity to produce only that which is perfect and good. It exercises its absolute freedom from necessity by endowing the outer physical self with free will to choose to follow good or evil, order or disorder. So when people think, or when I used to hear, well, we're created in God's image, God wants us, like, well, then what the hell is all this evil stuff going around? It's our free will. We have that free will, and we've read that in a previous chapter. I think it was The Power of Awareness. There was a whole chapter called Free Will. We are free to do whatever we want with that God power. That's why amazingly horrific things happen, because it is that God power, but it's being misused from the human mind, choosing good or evil, order or disorder. So if a person uses their godlike power to choose evil and disorder, that's going to happen, but it won't last forever, because that will kill itself off. It's like a cancerous cell in the human body. Literally, a cancerous cell as a person can be cancerous, and the body of humanity itself, it will destruct and destroy. That's the law. It's a good thing and a bad thing. It's horrific that it can do that, but then the grace of God, the laws of God, thank God, it can't last forever. It will literally die off. It will destroy it, self-destruct eventually, but that can last years, decades. Woof. All right. Choose this day whom ye will serve, good or evil. But after the choice is made and accepted, so that it forms the individual's habitual consciousness, then imagination manifests its infinite power and wisdom by molding the outer sensuous world of becoming in the image of the habitual inner speech and actions of the individual. So after we choose, the choice it is made and accepted, regardless of if we choose good or bad. It forms the individual's habitual consciousness. We get on that track. It's like a train track. We're either on the track of good or evil. And I mean this metaphorically. Positive or negative. We're two train tracks. They call them rivers. You're at the upstream, downstream, whatever. So two train tracks leading to peace, pain, chaos. Two train tracks. But once you decide, you can't serve two masters at once. You literally can't be on two train tracks, two trains of thought. Once you decide, I'm going to go on this train track of good, you just automatically, habitual consciousness follows. The imagination manifests infinite power and wisdom by molding the outer, then your outer world become the image of the habitual inner speech. So only good can come from being on a good train track. And likewise, only bad can come from being on a bad train track. In every moment we can choose. And remember, at any moment, how are you feeling? Are you anxious, depressed, scared, fearful, nervous, worried, feeling not so well, something's off, headache, stomachache, whatever? Check in with yourself. It could be very subconscious. You might have migraines regularly. And if you have gotten checked out and know that there's no tumor or physical, actual thing that's causing that migraine, and you're just like, I just don't know why, I'm perfectly healthy, but I just have headaches, explore it. Or indigestion or heartburn, like if it's not, you eat a certain food and it causes heartburn. If it's just there randomly, or your stomach just is churning and you have a stomach ache, or you feel nauseous, check in. Because remember, depression, classic depression, you have physical symptoms of nausea, just absolute tiredness. And that's all connected to the mind and the brain and the thoughts of we're having. So powerful. So after the choice is made and accepted, so that it forms the individual's habitual consciousness, then imagination manifests its infinite power and wisdom by molding the outer sensuous world of becoming in the image of the habitual inner speech and actions of the individual. To realize our ideal, we must first change the pattern which our imagination has followed. Habitual thought is indicative of character. Habitual thought is indicative of character. I will leave it on that. We'll go to part 2 of chapter 6 tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed that. I always do. If ever you have any questions, please click the link in my profile page. Chat with me, talk to me, ask me any questions. I love doing this. I love talking about it. I love studying it. I love teaching it. It is just, I'm passionate. It's my passion. I love it. Have a wonderful Monday.